everyone. This is Wilson Cole, president of Adams, Evans & Ross, Backdoor Hire Solutions, and managing partner of ELOC Global. I am joined today, as always, with my daughter, Samantha, and also our lovely attorney, which is the same person, Samantha Cole. Hey, Sam, how are you doing?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
Doing fine, doing fine. You know, today we're going to talk about the third warning sign. And if you look at these warning signs as almost like categories of a hurricane, you know, you start having a problem when you see the first warning sign. You know, if you look at that as a category 2, and if you look at our other videos, we walk through that, or if you see the warning signs when they first start, category 1. Well, now we're in category 3, or warning sign number 3. And this is when it's very clear that you have a problem. The issue is, now that you know you definitely have a problem, you are much more likely to take damage in the forms of discounts, losing the debt to where they go out of business. And you're stuck now with, you know, you have a problem, so you really have 3 options. One is you can try to collect it yourself. If you haven't been able to do it, and this is on accounts that are hitting over 90 days, 190, you know, they're 90 days, 120 days, or 6 months past due, but they're definitely over that 90 to 120 days. Maybe they've stopped returning your phone calls. Maybe they've even maybe made a few promises and now they're just gone silent. You have 3 choices. One is you can continue to try to collect it on your own, and you may get paid if their situation improves. The problem is now, if they're behind 60 and 90 days with you, you're not the only creditor that they owe. They probably owe a dozen other companies that much money or more. And the longer you wait, they'll start losing their ability not only to pay everybody else, but to pay you as well. They still probably have cash flow. They probably are losing money. They're fighting the cash flow battles, but they may owe you, let's just say $20,000, but they have $100,000 a month at this point coming in. Their credit lines are going to start drawing up and becoming less available. Either A, their bank's going to cut them off, or they're going to max them out. This is when you start seeing a lot of business owners double down and start putting a lot on credit card. Speaking of credit cards, I am not a big fan of having your debtor pay you via credit card, because they can reverse those charges for up to 12 months. And I can tell you, Visa and MasterCard are not your friend. If they are reversing that charge, they're probably behind with Visa or MasterCard. Visa or MasterCard's looking at their credit rating, thinking these guys have got a problem. If they can shift that responsibility of their bill over to you, the next thing you know, they reverse that $10,000. I always like payment. Go ahead, Samantha.
In addition, even if it says in your contract and you've got a credit card on file to run, if they get more than 90 days behind, I can't tell you how many times in just weird economic times that may be more regional than COVID has been, where we end up having, the client ends up having a countersuit for fraudulently charging the card.
Yes.
Even though they had authorization.
Yes. And credit cards, a lot of clients think, well, I got a credit card, I'm safe. That is about the riskiest money. But let me tell you how risky it is. We will not take a credit card payment on any debt. If the client wants to take a credit card payment, we'll refer them over, but we will not take a credit card debt on a past due collection. And that is specifically for the reason, because they will reverse it when they get into trouble. And so now you're stuck with, do you turn it over for collections or do you turn it over for lawsuits? With us, you almost have the best, you don't almost, you do have the best of both worlds. Running it through collections is typically going to be quicker, and we're going to get it collected 84% of the time. But in the event that we don't, we lay the groundwork to where we're going to be more successful having to have suit filed. Because typically the way that an attorney collects, and this is not just, you know, if you go to your local attorney instead of using us, this is what they're going to typically do. They're going to send out a demand letter. When the debtor doesn't pay, they're going to come back to you and say, hey, Steve, they didn't pay. Let's go ahead and sue them. Now, suit can be an effective way to collect money. We use the legal system, 400 active lawsuits at any particular point. But the downside to suit is it's a 10 to 12 month process on average. If there's an economic slowdown or if there's COVID, you can probably ask 6 to 12 months. It was so bad in 2008 down in Florida because their court systems were overwhelmed with all the foreclosing mortgages, and their court system is a judicial foreclosure. So all of those foreclosures were having to run through the court system. In some counties, it was taking our clients 3 years to get it in front of a judge or longer. I always recommend collections because it's quicker, but if we don't collect it, then we send it out to the attorneys and it follows that particular process. Sam, another thing, and you see it as well as I do, during this period of time, it's critical because you're also not running the clock against the clock to get paid. You're running against the clock to get paid and letting 90 days pass. So if they file bankruptcy, the bankruptcy courts can't ask for that back. If we do look for our video on preferential payments in bankruptcy court, but what I am saying, and you heard correctly, is they can pay you, and if they file bankruptcy within 90 days, the bankruptcy courts can make them give it back. Sam, kind of in a very simplistic format, kind of explain to the clients what that is.
Well, it's a couple of things, and it also, you're less like, so point blank, if they file bankruptcy, they pay you 45 days later, they file bankruptcy. Bankruptcy trustee can come back, say, I see they paid you 50 grand. You have to pay 50 of it back. You have to pay 40 of it back, whatever their numbers are. If they paid you that and they were 120 days behind, I can guarantee they are going to make you give every cent back. If they paid you that and it was within terms, you're less likely that they're going to have to give it back.
Exactly.
I know that sounds crazy well, I've been waiting for my money, but they weren't paying you in the normal course of business.
Exactly. It was in essence, and in bankruptcy courts, that law is so if somebody wound up going out of business and they paid their brother-in-law, they paid their mother, it's built for retrieving the money back. Now, a bankruptcy trustee to me sounds like a really honorable official title. And this is where my preference to where I don't necessarily like the way that all attorneys handle it. A bankruptcy trustee is a law firm, and that's how they earn their money. And what they do is they make all those creditors pay that back because they get a percentage of what they're able to recover, for the secured creditors. It may be done in fees. It may be done in elsewhere. Maybe it's not, you get 10% of what you collect, but the only way they typically get paid is by recapturing that money, which to me puts the bankruptcy trustee, instead of them being a neutral party, it slants it to where there's an incentive. And, probably back 15 years ago, I was hired as a bankruptcy expert for one of those trustees out in La Jolla, San Francisco. I can't think of the name of the city, but it was around San Francisco where Apple is. And they brought me in to talk about what Sam just talked about, with what are the norms of business. And the norms of business are typically you're going to get paid somewhere between 30 to 40 days. They were at 90 days, therefore it was a preferential payment. Now, if you ever should get a call from a bankruptcy trustee, don't ignore it, but just don't sign a blank check, because there are some defenses. And we do a whole another podcast on that where we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But category number 3, or warning, when they start hitting 90, 120 days, understand you've now just opened up this Pandora's box of possibilities. And you got about a 71% shot at getting paid at 90 days. You've got about a 25% shot at getting paid at 12 months without having to sue them and things on those lines. Sam, what's the best advice that you can give once a client finds they're at that 120 days? They now know they have a problem. My recommendations is going to be for them to give us a call. But what do they need to do before they give us a call?
Quit talking.
Yeah.
Quit talking. That is it. If I had to look at accounts that come into my office and I look at what is said that damaged our client's case, I can almost guarantee it is said in the first, it's either going to be said in the first email when they aren't paying, in that 5 days past due, or it's going to be said at a rapid speed at 120 days past due.
100%. I agree with you. And a lot of people say, gee, Wilson, you guys have, a team over there. Whenever a new client calls in, why is it you and Sam always talks to them? And that is specifically why. I cannot tell you how many times we have had clients damage their case at that 120-day mark, to where if you're going to use us, if you're not going to use us, that's irrelevant from our conversation. I want to make sure that you don't do anything to damage it. And when we had salespeople, they didn't want to seem overzealous, where Samantha can say, oh, legally you don't need to do this. I can say, hey, here's what you're about to do, and you're going to screw yourself when you say this, this, and this. And that's specifically why Samantha and I still to this day handle the new client calls, is to keep the clients from damaging their case. I can tell you, with the third warning, you are definitely in a problem. If you allow it to go to the fourth warning, that's where the needle's going to tip, and you're going to have much less likely chance of getting paid versus getting paid. Samantha, any closing arguments before we wrap up this video?
I think we're good.
Well, thank you, guys. If you want to sign up for the full webinar where we break down the 5 warning signs and you kind of look at them as a category of a storm, click on the link below, sign up for the webinar. It's absolutely free. It's relatively short and it's fast paced, probably be about 20, 25 minutes. Sam, thank you. We'll see you next week. Everybody, until then, if you have any questions, give me a shout, 800-452-5287. Thank you.